Hello folks, Boo here. Today I'm gonna look at the spoilers from the Amonkhet. We know 68 cards out of 259 or something like that, so that's not a lot. But at least we can already see some tendencies and we can already shape up some expectations and some forecasts, let's say. Plus, reviewing the entire set would take too long, so I'd like to take parts in the reviews. So there we go. Well, Temet Reserve Moon. Well, decent body for its cost, and yeah, kind of like the ability, and the embalm on this is also sort of relevant. You don't have to attack with this guy, but then again, the thing about this is that you have to have tokens. It's not just actual creatures, it has to be tokens. And then, well, I do like the clause that they can't be blocked, so that makes your tempo threats real real threats to opposing planeswalkers, for example. And well, it does synergize with Embalm because all those embalmed creatures are actually tokens, copy tokens, or token copies, whatever. Then we have the Blue God, which doesn't have the official like visual in English, but we know that it's indestructible flying. 3 mana 5/5, and then it can't attack or block unless you have 7 cards in hand. And then for 4 mana, without tapping this thing, you can draw a card and then you may return a land to your hand. Which is an interesting thing, that is not a must. And yeah, you don't have to set yourself one turn behind or something like that. And you can just return a land so that you can actually animate this thing. That's pretty freaking threatening. So yeah, if you're a control deck, like this is your cheap win condition that throws you extra cards. What else you may want? The only argument is that it might be a little bit too slow for the current meta. But when you look at the new set, you should think in the context of rotation and the fact that once we would have both of the Amonkhet block sets out, and then the new block comes in, and then the actual rotation kicks in, and then we would lose both Zendikar and Innistrad blocks. So I would have Kaladesh and Amonkhet. And there is a chance in that environment that maybe wouldn't be that slow, but then on the other hand, the biggest offender of the current standard are actually coming from the Kaladesh block. What I'm saying is vehicles and Sahili combo. But then on the other hand, vehicles would be much less of a thing because I think losing Gideon is very big, and without it, the vehicle stack will have to reinvent itself. No pun intended. Splendid Agony, decent limited card at instance at common. Spreading couple minus counters is not actually that bad, and also there are some synergies in this set to actually put counters on your minus counters on your own stuff. Like with this channel initiates on the right. I like this card. Kind of reminds me of Utopia 3. It has constructed potential just because, well, you can have this 2 mana 3/4 if you want to, by just like killing some of your tokens, for example. But then again, you don't mind having this mana dork that actually can later on attack. So yeah, basically compared to Utopia 3. In early turns, if you cast it early enough, gives you like mana of any color. That's pretty cool. And then it can actually attack in the later turns when this 0/2 wall wouldn't be actually that impressive. Well, in this case, 0/1, but whatever. Even one sensor, that's the guy which we finally get after seeing it in future sight. and Future Sight basically was known with the fact that the cards from Future Sight would later appear in Future Set. So yeah, that was the thing, and yeah, we still yet to see Tarmogoyf, I guess, but it's like so powerful that like I suppose it's never gonna see light. But everything else from that set is probably pretty safe to, print in the next sets. And we did see some of the cards from the set, but not that many. As for the actual playability of this thing in Standard, well, it does fizzle a little bit, some black-green builds, so Evolving Wilds, Affine with Effort, and Traverse Stolen. So basically, it is going to make some impact, but not a whole lot. So there has to be something really annoying for this thing to actually be useful. Plus, we have Walking Ballista everywhere just because of the Sahili Cat combo, so yeah. Just gonna die all the time, pretty much, against the same decks it's like aiming for, in terms of fizzling their searches. Drake Haven reminds me of the old Astro Slide archetype, basically, from the Onslaught block. Yeah, well, you're not gonna hide away creatures, or you're not gonna shock targets with like with Lightning Rift. But that's still okay. And yeah, I believe with Lightning Rifts and Astro Stride, you had to pay one extra. Well, you didn't have to pay for Astro Stride, I think, but for Lightning Rift, you had to pay to shock. This is not as good as Lightning Rift, and then again, this was a long time ago, so I don't know how good would this be now. So we'll have to see. But yeah, it's kind of like archetype defining card, sort of. Nessus Scarabs, well, it's a card that has some potential for standard, for constructed, I mean, but yeah, the deck will need to have like all the pieces together. But yeah, in limited, this will be kind of a nightmare, I would say, and but it won't be like a hugely high pick. But if you pick this early, then you can easily draft around it. Consuming Fervor is pretty much a color shift of the Unstable mutation. And that card was good. I'm not sure how good this would be in current standard, but there are already some cards that actually make it pretty sick. Oh yeah, I forgot to talk about the Rega. So yeah, I like it, and well, it's probably gonna be much easier to animate than the blue one, at least, and it feeds itself basically, and yeah, doing damage and enabling madness and all the cycles and all the triggers from that is actually pretty crazy. Um, Thing is, I like all three of those cards. I mean the blue and red guts, and then the Drake Haven, but they're probably gonna be all in separate decks. So that's a bit unfortunate because they don't really synergize well together. But yeah, with the Red God and then the Consuming Fervor and then the Flame Blade Adapts, we kind of see some sort of a deck here. Serpapart, well, it's nice to have cards like this around, but I don't think it really solves anything. Public control decks are not really a thing, but then again, things might change after rotation, so until then, probably just a like interesting card. Without Flash is actually not that insane, and without protection, so it's not really that sick. And then yeah, we've seen a bunch of cards like this historically, and oftentimes they were just not enough. They weren't really a great solution. But it's nice to have this kind of card around. I'm really excited about the cash out. Oh, well, not cash out, but cast out. Basically, it's an Oblivion Ring for 1 mana more, but it has Flash, which is sick. So it's kind of like stays a snare that costs 1 more, but then again it costs 1 white more, and then it can actually target permanents. And then it has cycling as well. So that means that you can cycle it early and then bring it back like with Niso or something like that. At least until the rotation, so for a few more months in Standard. That's pretty darn good. And if they printed such a good uncommon card, even though 3 and 4 is a big difference for constructed, but yeah, it feels like the Planeswalkers they're gonna bring in from this set are gonna be pretty crazy, and then they're probably just bringing this in, I guess, because of gods. Yeah, I guess they just wanted to have like crazy uncommon that deals with gods in this set. I suppose otherwise that would be like too insane. Was there a Oblivion Ring sort of thing in Ferris? Oh yeah, they had Banishing Light. Yeah, right. Okay. So now everything is like reasonably well. Essence Scatter is great. So right now it's not really like needed all that much. But again, let's see after rotation. So we have Horrible Ori, and that's not really that great, but this can counter a Torrential Gear Hulk at the least. So yeah, I guess it will be utilized, but it wouldn't be something that would just power up some deck crazily. I really like this Open Heart or whatever the actual name of this card is. So compared to Transgress Domain, so both cost 2, both are sorcery of course, and with Transgress you get to take out a card with cost 3 or more. With this you just take out any non-legendary, which is an interesting thing. So you can't take out the guys out of their hand, but you can take out everything else, which is alright. I believe you still can take out Planeswalkers, but I'm not sure if you can't actually take out Planeswalkers because they belong to Legendary rule, but they're not legendaries themselves. So if you can take Planeswalkers out of their hand with this, then this card is playable. If you can't, then I'm not gonna be too excited about it. Flame Blade Adapt, it's a crazy card, I think, and the good part is that it doesn't get a health pump from the cycles and discards, so it's just power. That's still pretty damn good. So yeah, the question is whether we're gonna get enough playable cycles that cycle for cheap. But then of course you can just discard, and that enables all the Lightning Axes and Fury Tempers and so on. And then, whoa, with the Cathartic Reunion, this card is bananas. Yeah, so now you just need to find enough of payoffs for the cycles and discards. So you don't actually need to have that many good cycles, but then again, after rotation, I hope there will be enough cycles to make this still playable in the new standard, but currently it will be pretty busted, I think. Black Red Madness really wanted something like this, I think. Or let's just say, really wouldn't mind having something like that. Exemplar Strength, it has some constructed potential. I'm talking about this green 2 drop. It's probably just gonna be a decent limited card. But then again, it does have potential. If you want to have 2 mana for 4, you can sort of have it. If you can't, then oh well. Get to gain some life and slowly build up your Tarmogoyf. Which is, I guess, okay. Tacropelite, decent limited cuts, of course not constructed. You max out his attacks, and then you can pump your creatures. That's pretty good. So repeatable effect like that is pretty dangerous, I would say. So you can just basically keep this tapped, and you get a 4 mana Anthem effect. Yeah, that's quite okay. So if you want a flyer, you can have it attacking. So it's not overpowered, but it's a pretty decent common. Another free spell with the paralysis. So yeah, nothing special. It doesn't even draw you a card, so that's kind of a bummer. Uh, Perhaps it was just to balance out stuff in limited, because freezing up gods when they're active is kind of like busted and drawing from that. I don't know. If it would draw a card, then it would be a pretty sick limited card, but other than that, not really. Grave Diggers, on the other hand, are pretty nice in limited, but that's probably not a constructed card. Those times are over. Uncrop Crasher, it has a bit of constructive potential, but I wouldn't. Let's just say, wouldn't be so. Oh, okay. I wouldn't be surprised if it would not see play, and I wouldn't be surprised if it would see play in constructed. Because cards like this, in various forms, were actually pretty annoying in standard. So let's see if this actually hits the mark. During cons times, there was one, I think, that was actually pretty scary and actually played 1 or 2 copies in standard decks. The next one, on the other hand, is definitely gonna be in my mind the constructed staple. Just think about it. Okay, you have to have something in play before this guy. But then you can just, put a minus counter on a token or something. And then you have a 4 mana 5 for haste guy. Like, okay, doesn't have trample, doesn't have flying, but still, come on. I think that's pretty powerful, and people are not gonna be happy to see this in limited. Catcher's name, well, it's gonna go pretty low in picks, I think, despite the fact that with the Emballed, or whatever the key name keyword was. So let's quickly embalm. Okay. So all embalms are actually zombies, so mummies. So yeah. So it's not just for very specific decks. It's actually for a lot of decks with embalm, and you have actual zombies and not just embalms. And yeah. Not spectacular, but in the right deck, pretty darn good for its cost. Because we're used to things like Dino Charge and stuff like that. So just a free mana pump to attack for everybody. Scribe Mindful, well, this is not gonna be a constructed card, most likely, but in limited, that's pretty sweet. So you get a decent body, and then later in the game it can rebuy something. Yeah, why not? Rebuy some removal. Curse Minotaur, well, free to for free, which is already fine. It's a zombie, so it has some synergies. Not too many, but something. And then it has Menace, so free to Menace for free. Well, that's quite decent for limited, I would say. Actually, above decent. For common. Limits of Solidarity. Well, it's basically threatened for 1 more mana with cycling. Yeah, probably pretty good. Probably pretty good for beatdown decks. And Spider Grasp, well, it's a little bit, it's like in just tiny bit for constructed, but gosh, this will be so annoying and limited. If they have like open mana including a green, and then you just have to guess all the time, it's annoying. I don't like cards like this, like for that cheap, and that give such a huge Toughness boost. Again, another very annoying card for limited. Well, to play against the generous resolve. 1 mana at instance. I believe it's common. Yes, it's common. It has cycling, so it's kind of safe to play it main deck. And then it just wrecks you for 1 mana. It's annoying. It's annoying, and it has cycling. So um, it's worse you can cycle it if you don't find a good use for it. But quite often you'll have to play around this. That's I'm not fond of that. Trial and knowledge. Well, I love this card for limited. Then again, we have Felidar Guardian to flicker this. So yeah, right now before rotation you have Oaths to flicker, which are cheaper. But then once those gone, then controllers just Sky-ish decks will probably use this. But before that, no, you don't need this. You have Oath of Jace at the very least if you want to do stuff like that. Or you just stick with Oath of Nissan Traverse, for example. Don't be too alone. Same as like high in the pack. Just your usual limited cards. Nothing spectacular, but yeah, I like those fillers. It's one of the bases of limited format. 6 cents. Well, we've seen cards like this before, and obviously, if it would say just when it does damage, it would be busted. So they fixed it, and so instead it's just combat damage. But yeah, um, another potential option for Boggles in Modern, but I don't know. Um, Pretty good unlimited, but constructed I'd have to see. So at the moment you don't really need it in any deck, but I hope people will try it somewhere. Renewed Faith. Well, speaking of controlish value deck, so you have an enchantment already that's you know, lets you get value off of the cycles and discards. You have a card that gains your life, or like lets you just cycle. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see. If we see that kind of reprint, then what might be coming is something I would be really looking forward to. Angler Drake, well, I would say it's a bomb for limited, that's for sure. For 6, you get a 4 for flyer and you get to bounce a guy. Yeah, that's nuts. Like one of the better blue uncommons at least. And one of the main uncommons in the set to look forward to in limited. Archmage of Ifnir, first I thought it was like busted, then I realized that it's like not that busted. But then again, even without the main ability, it's still a 5 for flyer for 5 with cycle. And then it has a bonus on top of that, so it's just bound to be good at like in some shape or form. Yeah. Question is like in what kind of deck like you would play it. But then again, it's just probably gonna be one of those cards that together as a package they make up as a kind of new deck or new deck archetype. So look at it not just like where it fits like right now, but just wait till you see the whole set, and then together with a bunch of new cards that might be a real deal. Excited to see Fling back. So we have the functional Atog in the previous, like in, was it Kaladesh or Revolt? I think it was Revolt. And then that guy combined with Fling. Well, Kitchen Magic at the very least. I'm talking about those random FNM decks that just might sometimes appear and wreck your ass out of nowhere because you're not prepared for things like that. Would it be more than this? I hope, but most likely not, unfortunately. Giant Spider is back, so moved from the core sets, from the basic sets to actual editions. It's a bit weird, but yeah, you have a few like flyers in this set, so I don't mind having that. Oftentimes, very solid creature in limited. Cartouche. Well, okay, so our cartouche. So there was a card that actually cares about that sort of thing. I mean the card type. So for 1 mana, okay, you get a 1/1, and then the creature you enchant gets 1 on first strike. Again, another interesting aura for Poggles and Modern. Um, Definitely very solid and limited. You get a Shumper, and you buff your guy and give it first strike. Yeah, for 1 mana, that's pretty good value. Would you need this in Constructed? Well, there was at least one card that actually cares about this card type, so we'll see. Uh, Crab is crab. It's decent. It's delicious. This guy. So, oh yeah, I believe when it enters, you have to discard a card. So, something like that. Yeah, but then again, it's a 2/2 for 2. Shouldn't be like 2 free at least, or like 3 free ideally for the price of discarding the card. Yeah, that's kind of strange. Well, the dragon is obviously pretty interesting, and I would say that it's mostly gonna be actually used in not just straight beatdown decks, but it might be used in sort of mid-rangey decks that might switch between like aggro and controlish roles. Right, then you have this Anointed Priest. So, whenever a creature token enters and your control gain a life. Okay, so it costs 2 instead of 1. That's very accustomed. Outside of Soul Priest and Phyrexia, which was an interesting card, and for that one you were prepared to pay 2 mana. It has a better body, so it's a 1/3, so it can actually block some stuff. But then again, you only get life for creatures you control, and not only for creature tokens. Okay, it has Embalm. So yeah, I'm not sure I even want this unlimited. That's the problem. Might be a necessity in some decks, but not that relevant. Floodwaters, sorcery, first of all, and then 6 mana. Okay, it has cycling. Returns 2. Filler, filler, filler. Just a decent filler. Just because of cycling. This on the other hand, so you basically get a guy with flashback. It's a free to for free. That's okay. Flashback is actually not that overcosted, so that's good. And then it has vigilance, so like yeah. Once you buff this thing, then well, it's gonna be pretty good. Pretty decent common. I like it. As I mentioned, this is game day promo, so can block an extra guy, 2/2 for 2, but it has basically this flashback thing going on. But then again, how much do you care about that? So we'll have to see. We'll have to see about that. Mightily preprints, yeah, very important and limited. Decent common proved to be actually quite good. Impeccable timing also proved to be quite decent for limited. Sacred Cats, I don't know what to say about this card. Probably just somebody wanted interesting looking cat for this set just because Egypt cats, stuff like that. But yeah, you can basically disregard any considerations about limited or constructed for this card. And this is not Pharaohs, even though it reminds a lot of Pharaohs. But you don't have the bestows, so yeah. Right, the first split card, the rare one. So, as I previously read it, so it destroys all the big guys, so 3 plus power. And then the flashback basically says bring back. Was it into play? Well, I think it was two hands. I think it was two hand. Its play would have been like pretty sick, but actually, let's have a look at it just to make sure. No, two hands. Okay, two hands. Yeah, which is still pretty sick. So first of all, this will be insane in modern Martyr of Sands kind of deck, because you have a wrath for all the big stuff, and then you can actually kind of have extra proclamations of rebirth. So yeah, so that's a pretty big addition to modern. So far, I don't know how you would fit this into standard. I can only think of the fact that okay, post rotation, if you still want to like be playing vehicles and stuff like that, so you can have this. It destroys all the big power guys, and then you get to rebuy all those cheap stuff. So on your turn, actually, the Toolgraph Exemplar is small, and then not Sorcerer's Apprentice, but the red one dropped the Apprentice. That one actually is just a 2-3, so it works with that as well. Then you get to rebuy Ballistas, for example. Okay, you kill Motorist in the Depala, but I guess that's okay. I don't know, we'll have to see. So probably there's something cool in this set with that is awaiting us soon with next spoilers. Preparation, well, it's a crazy card, I would say. Let's remind ourselves, because I don't remember the full text on this. So yeah, it's kind of a Mighty Leap kind of Mighty Leap. Instead, in the line you give it lifelink, and then the second half is actually pretty good. So you basically get 2 tricks / removals with 1 card. Yeah, that's gotta be good. Then I actually think Onward might be a decent card. So it reminds a bit about Timur Battle Rage, but instead of being just ridiculous cards, so it's just an interesting one. So you have to pump something like kind of berserk it without trample with the first half, and the second one just gives the creature double strike. Although at sorcery speed, which kind of sucks, but I guess like that's what you get when you have a split card. So yeah, I guess it's fine. Destined, huh? Right. Probably just a limited card. I just don't see it in constructed, so Destined is interesting, but then the lead doesn't actually make up for it. People might try, but I just don't see it. I like the Onward. This one just doesn't really inspire me. The Vault is pretty sick, of course, so in slower decks. But then again, what's lower decks in standard? So we'll have to see. So they need to print in not just like another shock or galvanic bombardment or thing like that, but something special. Good part about chip interaction, well, we'll get this enchantment with cycling. So at instant speed, you can make 2/2 flyers. So that is interesting against planeswalkers. And then you get this cast out that deals with planeswalkers and instant speed, and also guardians as well. So yeah, and also vehicles too. So that's pretty crazy. It's actually end of turn, if you didn't have to counter anything, you can just cast out a vehicle. That's pretty sick too. And in those decks, you might want to play this Oracle's Vault. So yeah, tap in, 2 in a tap, exile top until 10. You can cast it. Yeah, like probably as a, like one of, or like one extra one after sideboard in some controlish decks. Cause why not? Why not? Um, yeah, I like it. I like it a lot. The only question is about the speed, whether this would actually be fast enough. But then again, you have tower decks, so yeah, probably a good addition to tower decks. Outside of those, I don't see it seeing much play right now, um, because otherwise you won't have time. But the tower decks are really focused on what they're doing, and they might like play as a one-off because they don't want to just tap out for Chandra, let's say. So, for example, that would be too vulnerable. This one, on the other hand, wouldn't. So, and then the natural state doesn't actually touch this, but everything else does. So that's also a thing to keep in mind. And then we have monuments. So I'm not super excited about the white one, so just spamming one once I don't think it's that good. Blue one in the red deck might actually be pretty big, but it needs a lot of setup. So right now I don't see a deck, but after the full spoiler, maybe I'll change my opinion and see for myself. Black one is interesting because, well, we already, well, not already, but we still would have Zolbert cutthroats and all the stuff like that. So you might think of something. Um, and we do have free sack atlas thanks to Revolt. So there is that. So, but that's for the cutthroat. And as for this, you actually need to cast that stuff. So you kind of need to go turbo chain in terms of just cycling and redrawing. What could help that? I'm not sure. So you need to basically revive or cycle a bunch of stuff. And that could be a problem. But later in the set, maybe they will give us something like that that will just help you to rebuy stuff. You could rebuy that with this new ref. That's a bit slow though. And yeah, the good part about monuments, they just say like any creature. So just they don't really care that much about the color. They only care for the color of the creatures when you cast them. So that's a thing. And yeah, so that might be a thing. Yeah, like Black Monument plus the new Wrath. That's actually interesting. Because this Black Monument wouldn't work with the Marsh from the Tomb, at least. But you might very well, play Marsh from the Tomb in that deck anyway, because you're gonna play Cutthroats and so on and so on. So yeah, I think that might be a deck while it's still in standard. So some people probably should try it. Probably not going to be very competitive unless something really busted will appear in this set. The green one is pretty huge, I would say, but something tells me that the one that will see most play will be the red one, because looting is pretty sick, and then You have a lot of synergies for this card. The red one drop, for example, and then it allows to trigger all the madness and all those all that stuff that jumps back. So black red gets a pretty big boost, I think, out of this set already. Question is, would this be enough? We'll see. We'll see. Um, black red hasn't been like the best thing right now in center because Mardu does functionally the same thing, but it has a lot more flexible tools and actually at times can be faster. So there is that. But then if you turn into this kind of tricky monument slash actual Hazaret, plus you get extra one drop, so you get to play um, probably the Vamp, the Apprentice, and that Menace guy. So yeah, and then okay, trying not to die turn 3. Let's say they don't have either of the combo piece, or that you actually have something to attack or something to block with, and then next turn you can cast for cheap a bunch of things. So I don't know. Would that be just a straight up mono red deck? I don't think so. As long as you have disintegration actually in the format, and this guarantees that you have an artifact. And also, so the monuments are pretty sweet because disintegrations, Inspired Industry, what else? I think there are a few more things. Plus, this red monument synergizes with stuff like, so not just amalgams, but also scroungers and so on. So yeah, pretty good card, I would say. Pretty good card. Uh, green one, well, we'll have to see. Right now, I don't think so. Moving on, probably, because that's just pretty sick. So cast a few things and then just pump something and give it trample. The trample part of the Rana's monument is the most scary one. Uh, so yeah, I would say red one is gonna see most play, and then potentially a green one after that. So that's my opinion. The new ref might not be enough and might be too slow for the black one to actually be pushed into competitive scene for constructed. So and then yeah, the lens. Well, what can I say? So apart from all the things that you have considered yourself probably already, I would mention the fact that you have this enchantment that gives you 2/2 flyers when you cycle. And with a bunch of those, maybe you can justify, going into a lot of colors. And if we get at least one more good pay of cards, like that blue enchantment, then the cycling control deck might be really a thing. Because we get Renewed Faith, we get these lands, you can play a bunch of those, you don't mind the speed bump a whole lot, and then you have the cast out. So there needs to be at least one more big payoff card for the cycles for this kind of mid-rangey deck. Otherwise, I don't know. But yeah, we still haven't seen more than half of the set. So let's see. But yeah, I hope cycle control deck will be a thing. That will be really sweet. That will be such a nice flashback. That'll be such a nice flashback. The full art lands are pretty sweet too. The basics are quite okay as well, so that's gonna be some value. I mean, good foil basics potentially. Well, what can I say? A lot of those invocations if you get to play them unlimited, I mean, once you open them, you can. It's just ridiculous. Imagine getting racked and limited by Auster command, for example, cryptic command. Uh, what else is actually important to point out here? Even right now, it's kind of hard for me to, read them properly. Well, Vindicate is busted. I think that we have Wrath of God here as well. Like Mind Twist, I like one of the reasons why I would not want such invocations and I mean printed out, because then somebody would just totally wreck somebody with Mind Twist. That's just so ridiculous. Or like Worship. That's also pretty sick. There are not that many like answer seats right now. So yeah, Consecrated Sphinx. Oh my freaking god. Well, Maelstrom Pulse is fine. It's just like gets rid of something. Pact to Negation is actually not that ridiculous, but yeah, just imagine someone just playing Consecrated Sphinx and you're like, yeah, good game, good game, good game. But yeah, the absolute worst will be the Mind Twist. That would be just totally busted. And yeah, Dark Ritual, come on. Come on, I understand that you need to get those cards in foils and provide more, basically, reprints for legacy and modern players, just to, make the formats more accessible. I understand that. Um, but then, really, attrition? Can you imagine attrition in limited? Come on, that's like, what? Oh, come, gee. Okay, guys, hope you enjoyed this despite the ending notes. Don't forget to subscribe, leave any feedback in the comments below. I'll check that out, and yeah, until the next sale, goodbye, folks.